we have a great guest today. I'm very excited. For those who've
Yes.
listened to this show since its inception, one of our early callers is goes by the name Lost. One of my favorite callers, and he's got an interesting story about being in Hollywood and dealing with the occult, and perhaps his own experiences with demon doors, probably far worse than ours. So let's get Lost up in here and see what's going on. Lost, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Ready to get inverted.
Awesome,
Cool.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And like I said earlier, we talked about some of your experiences, and I think it'd be good to go through all those again. But
Mhm.
let's just start at the beginning, like where you're from, and how you eventually moved into that early interest with the occult.
Sure. So I think a lot of it came from just a lot of time alone as a child, in a non-religious household. So I had a lot of time to just kind of, think to myself. Then at a young age, I moved to Singapore, where I was um, sort of the doors were open to like a whole different kind of multitude of religions. Before that, I lived in Texas, which it's very singularly Christian. Um, so
Before you go any
being in
further,
Southeast, sorry,
how long did you live over here before you went to Singapore?
I moved when I was about 10.
Okay,
So
you were really young.
just my early elementary school years.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, by the time I was in Southeast Asia, uh, Singapore is a very multicultural and multi-religious society, and so I had a lot of friends that were Buddhist and Hindu and Muslim and everything, and so without necessarily having a religious upbringing, I still had a lot of religious kind of like iconography and influence around it, and I found it all very interesting.
Mhm.
Um, but then, also Singapore just being kind of a conservative place, and me being an angsty teenager who kind of thought I knew it all, I was very atheistic. I read a bunch of Hitchens and a bunch of Dawkins, the whole four horsemen of the new atheism movement. And, it made me feel smarter than everybody else.
Mm.
And then simultaneously, my brother was in a band that was kind of well known just in the region in Southeast Asia.
Mm.
So I, without much parental supervision and access to a lot of the excesses of rock and roll and all that kind of stuff, I um, eventually the Satanic Bible found its way across my lap, and like many LaVeyan Satanists, I read the thing cover to cover in one go,
How
um,
did you find it?
and it spoke to me in a weird way.
How did can
It
you say how the book made its way to you?
I had a friend who was just, he was my delinquent best friend, and we got into a lot of trouble together in a lot of fun ways. And
Hmm.
he always had weird books, like weird obscure comics and just like strange things. He was just a very eccentric kind of guy. And I found the Satanic Bible in his room. It was unclear whether it was his or it may have been his older brother's. Um, but yeah, I read the whole thing. It had this kind of it comported really well with the idea of kind of materialist atheism. It was all very much it reaffirmed the ideas of the carnal and indulgence and all these things, while simultaneously having this sort of aesthetic that atheism just kind of lacks, and I think that humans are wired for. And so these images and this aesthetic and this sort of militant contrarianism appealed to me. And you know, the LaVeyan Satanists will say all the time that, oh, it's a non-theistic religion, and it's just about the carnal and the here and now. But even the Satanic Bible, half of Bible basically is in reference to ritual. And according to Anton LaVey, ritual is kind of a it's a psychodrama. It's about expelling your own internal energies, and he makes no claim, at least kind of like on the surface, though he does kind of wink and nod, that by expelling these kind of like energies from within, that there could be any kind of like influence on the material world around us. Um, but a lot of Satanists, I think, that end up kind of going down the path of actually practicing ritual, um, start to notice that there might be something to it. And there's been a lot, and that's kind of why the Church of Satan, like LaVey's Church of Satan, has kind of lost its prestige and the hold that it kind of once had, because it is filled with kind of schism. And then the person that took over the Church of Satan after Anton LaVey, Peter H. Gilmore, was kind of a floundering, unimpressive person as well. But there was a LaVeyan Satanist back in the day who goes by the name now of Diabolus Rex, who was high up in the Church of Satan, um, totally ascribed to the non-theistic kind of like characteristics of everything, but through his ritual work, um, found that he could do things that he couldn't quite explain. And he then broke off with the Church of Satan and created his own form of theistic Satanism. And so I, for a long time, was this kind of militant atheist, just kind of, yes, the carnal, the indulgence, and all this kind of stuff. And then through like further research and through just revelation of these kind of, odd things, it became more and more challenging to continue to think that, like, oh yes, all that exists is the material, and humans are just another animal, and that the material world is all there is.
Before you go
And
on, before
when
you
you
go on,
start to realize that, it was kind of like hard to continue with. There's implications with that made it hard to kind of like continue with Satanism
hey,
as such.
Lost. Before you go on, can you describe some of these rituals that Diabolus, I think that's his name, what he was doing? Like, can you go give us some examples?
So famously, he did. There was the Church of Satan released a video of a black mass, and during this black mass, they had different kind of people within the Church of Satan perform different kind of rituals. And Diabolus Rex, the ritual that he performed was known as a destruction ritual, which is I strongly advocate against ever. But this so a destruction ritual is just basic. It's exactly what it sounds. It's there's somebody that you don't like or something that you don't like, and you put a whole lot of intention into an end that you hope to see, and you go through the steps that are laid out in the Satanic Bible.
And he was having success with these, and people were seeing this happen.
According to himself.
Right.
Yes. So a lot of times when these people kind of like do these rituals, it's not like everybody's standing in a room and, the devil walks through the door or comes
Right.
through the portal for all to see. A lot of it, you're just kind of, taking people on their word. And I think that's also kind of abuse sometimes as well.
Mm-hmm.